Welcome to This Explainer. Look, if you've ever stared at your bank account and felt this sudden, sinking wave of anxiety, I need you to know something right off the bat. It is not entirely your fault. Today, we're going to unpack a profound systemic shift that has basically rewritten the rules on how we build wealth. Okay, let's just dive right into this, because what we're going to uncover is going to completely reframe how you look at your own financial standing.
Let's do a quick mental exercise. Think about this for a second. Just roughly calculate your monthly income in your head, and then subtract your usual monthly expenses. Got it? Okay, that tiny, fragile gap left over, that right there is your actual safety net. If you lose your job tomorrow, or, heaven forbid, face a sudden medical emergency, that gap is literally all that stands between you and financial ruin. And look, if that gap feels terrifyingly small to you, you are not alone. Building an emergency fund today feels like pushing a boulder uphill, and a lot of folks feel like they're doing something fundamentally wrong. But the truth? It's way deeper than your personal spending habits.
So, let's get into Section 1, the missing emergency fund and the illusion of wealth.
We often look back at our parents' generation and just wonder, how on earth did they do it? They managed to raise families, pay for our education, buy a house, maybe a scooter, a car, and still retire pretty comfortably, all on a fraction of our salaries. Meanwhile, you might be pulling in 5 times what they did, and you're still sweating over rent. So what was their secret? Well, it's simple. They had invisible safety nets. These massive institutional and societal structures were just quietly operating in the background, holding them up. Today, that macroeconomic reality is completely gone. We are the first generation totally stripped of that traditional financial armor, meaning we're relying entirely on our own individualized risk.
Which brings us to Section 2. The 5 lost safety nets, and the massive shift from structural support to personal accountability.
Okay, so the very first lost safety net is the joint family. Back in the day, this was your ultimate backup. Financial, physical, emotional, you name it. If someone needed an interest-free loan to start a business or just help raising the kids, the family was right there. But today, nearly 70% of urban families are nuclear families. That huge shared support system is just gone.
To put into perspective just how extreme this shift has become, let's look at the raw numbers. 9 million. 9 million people in India right now are living completely alone. On top of that, about 30% of the working population are immigrants who've left their hometowns for work. They have zero local support system. So instead of 10 people passing around the hat to share the emotional and financial burden, it all falls squarely on your shoulders. And often, you're also carrying the responsibility of aging parents who don't have a retirement corpus of their own.
Safety net number 2, the death of guaranteed pensions. If your folks worked a government job, they probably had the old pension scheme. It was defined, it was inflation adjusted, and it paid out for life. The government essentially took on all the risk, both the market risk and the longevity risk. But today, under the new pension scheme, sure, you contribute, but the payout is totally market-linked. If the market tanks right when you're ready to retire, your corpus shrinks. The really crucial takeaway here is that the entire burden of risk has shifted from the institution straight onto you.
Which brings us to the third massive loss, lifelong healthcare. Decades ago, schemes like CGHS covered you and your dependents for life, not just while you were punching a clock. Today, you might have corporate insurance, which, hey, feels like an awesome perk, but the second you quit, or more importantly, the moment you retire at 60, poof, it vanishes. Exactly at the age when you actually start needing frequent medical care, you're left entirely unprotected. And if you try to buy private insurance then, you're going to face some brutal pre-existing disease clauses.
And then there's the fourth lost net, the big one. Affordable housing. It's basically vanished. To really grasp this, you just have to look at the affordability index. Mathematically, a house is considered affordable only if it costs less than 4.5 times your yearly income. Right now, not a single major Indian city meets this standard for the average earner. Homeownership has become virtually impossible for the common person unless you're willing to take on absolutely crushing debt.
And the real-world consequence of this housing crisis is honestly staggering. If you do manage to scrape together enough to buy a place today, those massive loans are going to eat up a huge chunk of your livelihood. On average, a modern professional is shelling out 47% of their income just on EMIs. When nearly half your paycheck is instantly wiped out by debt before you even buy groceries, there is incredibly little left for actual wealth generation, investing, or, dealing with emergencies.
And finally, the fifth lost safety net, lifetime employment. Our parents could literally join a company at 23 and confidently map out their retirement party at 60. Today, technology completely shifts every 4 to 5 years. It's wild. Entire industries get disrupted overnight, meaning the very skills you spent years studying can become totally obsolete.
The dream of a guaranteed lifelong income stream from a single employer is effectively dead.
Actually, scratch that. It's worse. The average employment tenure today is a mere 1.6 years. Just let that sink in. 1.6 years. Income stability is totally a thing of the past. You just can't rely on your employer for long-term security anymore.
Moving right along to Section 3, the modern financial reality. You are on your own.
So, let's sum this all up. You are navigating an insanely volatile landscape right now. Crazy high job turnover, massive loan burdens, and a staggering 40% out-of-pocket healthcare burden. Those structural macroeconomic systems that propped up previous generations, they've completely evaporated. Your modern survival kit has absolutely zero institutional safety nets. And the irony is, society is constantly bombarding you with pressure to buy the newest iPhone, take out personal loans, and just consume endlessly. But when it comes to risk, you bear it 100% alone. You're reliant on your salary, your specific skills, and frankly, a little bit of luck. You are the very first generation to face the loss of all 5 of these safety nets at the exact same time.
All right, let's pivot to Section 4, building your own armor, moving from institutional reliance to proactive planning.
Now, we aren't going to just sit here, stare at this painful reality and throw our hands up. No way. Since the government and your boss aren't going to provide your safety net anymore, you've got to build your own. Let's just look at the math of private health insurance for a second. If you lock in a 15-lakh private policy at age 25, your monthly premium is roughly 960 rupees. That is literally less than what you probably drop on coffee in a month. But if you wait until you're 60, when your corporate cover vanishes and you actually need to see a doctor, that exact same coverage is going to run you about 5,500 rupees a month. And worse, it'll be heavily burdened with mandatory copays and devastating wait times for pre-existing conditions.
The second absolute must-have piece of armor is term insurance, and honestly, the timing here is everything. Look at this. For a 1 crore cover over 20 years, a 25-year-old pays around 9,000 rupees a year. If you wait just one single decade until you hit 35, your premium jumps by nearly 35% to 16,000 rupees a year for the exact same coverage. Securing pure term insurance early guarantees that if the worst happens, your family has a massive, impenetrable financial fortress protecting them, even if you don't have a giant joint family to fall back on.
So bringing this all together, here is your actionable roadmap. Step 1, acknowledge the reality. The old safety nets are gone and they aren't coming back. Step 2, lock in your private health and term insurance right now while you're young and it's incredibly cheap. Step 3, use unbiased advisory services. The source material for this explainer specifically points to platforms like Ditto, mainly because they offer completely free, spam-free consultations. They aren't there to just push products. They actually analyze your specific, unique situation to help you build the exact individualized financial armor that you need.
The core philosophy here is pretty simple, and the source material sums it up perfectly with this quote. It might not be your fault, but it is your responsibility. Look, complaining about inflation, crazy real estate prices, or the lack of government pensions, it's just not going to save you. You have to step up and take absolute ownership of your financial destiny. Which leads us with one final, incredibly urgent question for you to chew on. Are you going to sit around waiting for a safety net that simply no longer exists? Or are you going to take action and start building your own today? The choice is entirely yours, but the time to decide is right now. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you in the next one.